work.
Like, yeah.
Put the Indians in the prayers.
It's a.
We're on line.
They
What happened to the Tigers last night?
Exactly, thank you. We're taking first place over here.
Yeah, right.
Don't hold your breath.
Dude, I gotta spread out, man. I did notice side of the.
Every game counts. Every game
One of my
counts.
board members is going to be dropping off a 12-foot white target. But he got for 75
Nice.
I got an Indian one too.
Yeah, we need.
I got it for 75 cents. Check on it. I got it. Yeah, never asked
Okay, I will call this meeting of the Sunday County Commissioners to order. Thursday, April 27, 2017. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need to get you a lift chair, Mr. President.
Yeah. Okay, please join me in a short prayer. Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance as we represent the citizens of Seneca County. We ask for your loving hand to protect those defending our freedoms and their families. And we ask for your blessings on all present. We ask all this through your Son, our Lord. Amen. Amen. Okay, we will do the roll call, I guess, is where we're at. Get it.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
Commissioner Stacy?
Here.
Okay, then I need approval, a motion to approve the digital audio video recording of the previous board session from Tuesday, April 25th, and the written index of that meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, old business. First of all, do we have anything to add, commissioners, to today's agenda?
I have.
No? Got enough? Okay. So, who do we have here as guests and that need some input and respect for their time? Is there anything we can do to go to one thing as opposed to another?
Steve's
Attentive crowd.
scheduled presentation we put to a different meeting, Dale Arnold,
Okay.
regarding stuff just
All
because, so
right.
we gave that adequate
Well, then
time.
let's just go with the agenda. The Ohio Story Grant. I had the pleasure of listening for the first time to the visual audio recording of the commissioners' meeting. I appreciate the fact that it's not viewed that often.
You don't face for video or what?
No, we all have faces.
Face for radio?
Yeah, except for the ones, we all have faces for radio, that's right. Okay, so, as I understand it, there was some discussion regarding who ought to get what, where, when, and how. So, I have a couple of comments, but I guess I'll refer to Commissioner Stacy first of all. Any thoughts? Where would you like to go with this at this point?
Well, one of the things we left Tuesday's meeting with was checking out, could we have an extension, and then verifying a number of questions on, as Regional Planning Director Charlene Watkins brought up, she goes, you want to make sure the projects you're going to put forth qualify, because there were very distinctly some things listed that would not be funded. So that's were some of the things that I think we just needed to get verified before we solidified the list, so that we put the best list forward from Seneca County. And even though that money is designated for us, we don't want the state to have to, keep going back and forth. We want to submit things that are eligible and find out about the extension, and that, through the efforts of Charlene and Stacy Wilson, was determined that it's only a week, but we can do the final submission of that. It's short, but that application by the 3rd. So that, because what's important, as I was realizing in our discussions and all the questions Tuesday, is that we're gonna need to pull these folks back who gave all this wonderful ideas and valid projects that they have that they need funding for, but a chance to they've got to be part of that. They're going to have to feed some more information to Charlene if she's going to assemble this application for us. And then some of them, there were great proposals of groups working together. We want to make sure that we've got that understanding clear on who's going to be responsible for what and those kinds of things. So I think we've had a little bit of time to do that, and that's helpful.
Okay, Commissioner Thomas, your thoughts?
We had some wonderful program, some applications, so I think we can make a decision if we need to.
Okay, I will, when I was more coherent this morning about 6:30, I wrote some thoughts down here, so excuse me for reading them, but they are fresh. And I did listen to and review these things, and, you know, initially my proposal was to establish some type of trust fund to be used for the exact purposes as detailed in the grant, the exact specifications. I believe that the Tiffin Historic Trust, Tiffin Theater, and museum folks, or a combination of those organizations, have a structure in place to properly administer these funds. I think their knowledge of the needs of the historical preservation projects are much keener than ours. I would leave it to the volunteers who have spent untold hours on preservation issues to decide how best money could be spent. To me, this is not about equal geographical distribution or some formula for a percentage to each. Rather, it is about using the money wisely as we can for the most good, and maybe being able to leverage some of it for larger projects. We have been presented with $50,000, and by the discussions that we've had, I don't know that we are in a position, from the breadth and depth of the knowledge of historical projects in Tiffin and Seneca County, as much of a breadth and depth as are the folks that have concentrated on this as volunteers over the past. And I'm trying to get some clarification from my presentation as to whether or not this is an allowable use of the money. By that I mean to put it in a trust, to use it as leverage, and to have someone else administer it. I believe that it is. Having said all that, if that doesn't work, then we'll have to go with the hybrid of some of the things that the two of you have proposed in order to get this thing up dead center. So, I would like to see us establish a trust, and I would like to, from a personal standpoint, and to have folks that are involved in historical preservation in the county be part of that group. We could designate whichever one of the 501c3s we wanted into which the money would go, but to have a separate fund that could be administered by that group to release the money and to decide which causes are great. I just don't feel comfortable at this point in picking winners or losers, because I don't think that we have enough knowledge and really understand all those projects. So that's where I'm coming from.
Do we, you said you believe that is an option that's available. I mean, can I ask Charlene what if she's investigated that any, or did you guys talk? I don't know, I guess I'm not
We
sure.
did, Charlene, I made a phone call, Charlene made a phone call. Don't have any specific
So we still have, okay,
clarification.
okay.
That's why you know, what I would like to see happen, speaking for one, is that we basically approve one thing, and then as a contingency, another thing. By that I mean, I think that you guys have come close in the dollar amounts that you wanted to disperse to different agencies. There were some discrepancies, but I certainly think the two of you could get together and say, okay, I'll give you some here and take some there, or whatever.
Right.
So, you know, we can come up with that proposal. And I would just say that would be in the motion, that the combination of Commissioner Thomas's and Commissioner Stacy's disbursements, their agreement would be used. Now, you know, that's okay.
So to direct it to make our priority list, I guess, that we have these at the top, the balance, we look at possibly leveraging some way if that's allowable. And if not, then we pull more projects in that we have, because we know we have enough projects. It's just a
Right.
matter of which ones, some of those things
Well,
may not qualify.
Okay, what I was thinking is that all the money go into the trust.
Oh, all the money, okay.
All the money go into
Trying to
the
verify
trust,
that.
and let
Yeah.
this group of people who understand historical preservation make the decision. So that, I mean, that to me, that makes the most sense and is the wisest decision from my standpoint.
So they make that decision to submit next Wednesday, or that we hold the money and then decide over time? I guess what do you think the application is going in? That it's in a trust?
Yeah, that's what I am proposing. That's not, obviously, that's just my thought, but it's up to this group to decide.
Yeah, I guess I just, I'll agree that we're not probably the best people to decide about the preservation, but that's why we ask all these organizations if they had ideas of things they need money for, and they identified a number of things, and a number of things that I think the availability to funding upon approval and all of that stuff, and putting that money into action, at least a portion of it, sooner would be very beneficial, and some of those to a lot of organizations. Like the video stuff hits a lot of organizations that benefit from that. Obviously, it's determining who's coordinating that and that kind of stuff, but that benefits a lot of them quickly. And it's not a matter of how quickly, but it just, everybody kind of gets something out of that. It's stuff that keeps action moving forward. Like I said, I just, the establishment of getting the rest of that done for all of the monies then otherwise ties it up and we don't see any of it utilized for a while.
I guess this is a little bit out of the ordinary, but I know there are some people who are representing some of the historical groups. Are there any comments? Would anybody like to add anything to this before we move on further regarding this discussion? Yes, Mr. Roberts.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I wasn't able to make any of the other meetings because of other commitments, but I think some representatives from the Fostoria Rail Preservation Society were here. And I had the honor of serving as their president when the rail park was planned and when it was opened, dedicated. If you want to look at numbers, I would suggest you drive through the viewer area at the preservation park over there. Most days there's not even a room to park. You have to park along the driveway. So I would say of all the museums, the Ritz, everybody included, this is 365 days a year, and there are people there from all over, primarily Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and a very large contingent from Ontario. We operate like everybody else on a shoestring budget. The Preservation Society, we also maintain a depot, well-preserved depot, which we want to turn into a museum. We've purchased a caboose. We want to move the caboose by the rail park and possibly turn that into a visitor center. But I would just hope that the board would consider this group over there, if for no other reason, the number of people that are served.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Yes.
Hi, my name is Mary McCall, and I live in Pleasant Township. In April of 2010, my husband and I were part of a group, including the Seneca County Courthouse and Downtown Redevelopment Group, who wanted to save the Spiva Manley House. The house has a unique history, and it is one of only a handful of houses of its era left in Tiffin. Over the next year and a half, we were able to do a lot of deconstruction and improvement. We had great community support, including volunteers from Tiffin Historic Trust, Heidelberg and Crossway, and others. We effectively mothballed the house and had it ready for a construction phase. Then, after the courthouse was demolished, and Franklin Conaway and his group were gone from Tiffin, we lost steam and focus. In 2015, we did obtain the deed to the house and formed a new nonprofit called Spiva Manley, Inc. By then, however, our volunteer base had dwindled, and I was tired and discouraged. We desperately needed a change. And then, ta-da! We found Nevin Martin and Weston Reinbold. They have smarts, vision, enthusiasm, and best of all, strong backs. We have a good start on making the house into a place that will benefit Tiffin, especially the Madison Front Street neighborhood. And I am sure these great kids can make that a reality. I will do all I can to help them, and I hope you will too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate your input.
I'll
Yes,
add,
Ned?
I'll add to that. We are young, we are motivated. It is an old home. We don't want to see it disappear. It can bring diversity to our community. It can add as a trail hub. There's all kinds of potential for this location. We won't let you down. We'll make it a proud and a great place. It's right off the beaten path of the main street for downtown Washington Street, so it's right there. There's all kinds of potential with that parking lot if you decide to move events there. You've got the Riverview right there on the corner. I mean, it's on one of the only brick streets that I know of in Tiffin. I mean, it is perfect for this grant. It is eligible for being on the National Registry because of its date. The original home was built by Josiah Hedges, the founder of Tiffin, to begin with. Please consider us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. Okay, are either of you prepared to move in any direction here?
I think my motion's still on the board. Ritz Theater would be after the 2014.
Okay, being the true politician I am going to have to abstain from the vote because I am on the board of Tiffin Theater, which is the Ritz. That would be a real conflict for me, so.
I guess I would like to move that we prioritize the first items on that list, which include the video work, which was really two separate things as the way they came to us. One, to do the historical markers and mapping of those, and then the one to do the video, I'm gonna call it clips or, videos of all, involving 20 different entities, museums and so forth. The Fostoria Rail was signage, the Scipio was for a case for their historical things in their hall, and the West Lodi was from the Park District regarding a roof. And then to have that be the top of the priority list, where it comes to where they're approximately the 25.8, and then to investigate looking further on the set aside of some of those additional funding if possible, and if that is vetted that it can't, or any of those don't meet the qualifications, that we are able then to start pulling in other projects that are qualified into the list to use the full 50. Like I said, it's a set aside, and if that would help with the Swipe of Manley and or what other projects as leverage monies, if that can happen. That engages some of the money into action right away for some of these groups that we've asked them to come forward with ideas for, and also set some money aside for future development of some great projects.
Okay, is that a motion?
That's a motion, first part of that.
Do we have a second? Okay, are there any other motions? Well, we have come to an impasse as to what we do. The deadline, as I understand it, is tomorrow.
We've got an extension.
So.
We did get the extension, the email, Stacy forwarded it late yesterday afternoon, 5 o'clock or so, she got the word, we got the extension, and so next Wednesday is when we need to submit to the state the application.
Okay, well, I guess that we will have to somehow caucus during this period of time, come to some type of arrangements. I will send you some additional thoughts, I guess, from where I stand, and then you can disperse them or let the other two commissioners know what they're thinking.
If the Ritz was not part of, which is not part of that first part of that, if I present a motion that just included the 25.8 of the money, I mean, can we at least know where we're starting our
Well, I
priorities?
guess with the other 24.2 that will be set aside, and there's no specific money in that for the Ritz?
No, they obviously have things on the list, but if it can't be set aside, then we'd have to start looking at that list of how it gets spent, which
Okay,
I'm
well,
no
I mean.
attorney, but I don't know how that,
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
I
not
respect
either.
your conflict of
Well,
interest.
I will second the motion with the covenant that anything involving the Ritz I need to abstain from.
What is the motion?
Motion is to spend the 25.8 as stipulated there, and put the 24.2 aside in some type of a trust, if it's approved. And if it's not, then we'll come back in to decide how to spend the rest of the money. So, we have a motion and a second. Need a roll call.
Can we have some discussion?
Sure, but, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I am not in favor of setting the money aside. I think it, it's going to incur some administrative cost. We set our plan out on how we were going to spend this money, and, the goal is to get it into the hands of the many good agencies that need it, and I think putting it in a side pocket is ill-advised at this time. So if we had inadequate number of good projects, then I think setting it into a side pocket may be a good idea. But the fact is, we've got a couple $100,000 of really good projects. So I can't see any reason to defer this decision and put it in a side pocket.
Well, the reason I see is because I don't think this board has enough, like, as I said, depth or breadth to pick winners and losers. The fact that there is a couple $100,000 in requests tells me that there are some folks out there that understand historical preservation, the importance of specific projects, that could be more astute at making a decision than we are.
Yeah, I just feel that's, disrespectful to the process. We set a process out, we said we were gonna award the money, and now we're not.
I don't think that's true at all. I think if you award it to a group who is going to manage it based on the specifications that's set forth in the guidelines, that you have dispersed and you have made a decision.
Question?
Any other discussion?
No, just call the
Okay,
motion.
very good. Roll call.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes.
A follow-up note, I don't know that we formally have acknowledged and recognized that we would like regional planning and director to put this application together for us. I guess I would just like to go on record and note that it'd be great if those who submitted these things, we get them in touch with you, Charlene, for whatever type of input you would need, and again, it's a priority list. And then the follow-up between maybe Stacy Wilson and yourself to the historic connection on that set-aside pool, if that indeed, what parameters would they need to know if we do that? And if so, does it need to rest in, a line item under somebody's 501c3 status, which we've got several that can do that with, or just how that works, but is that okay that we understand that that's where
Sure.
the coordinators, I guess, of doing that? Okay, I just wanted to verify that, so we know how it proceeds.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to make it known that due to the fact that this is due May 3rd, we are on a very short timeline. So those top entities, the West Lodi Church for the Park District, Scipio Township, Fostoria Rail, the video history and markers, and the groups involved, I will be calling on them today to meet either Friday or Monday to give me further information. And it is imperative that they get back to me as soon as possible with that information.
Okay. And if they don't, I know that, again, we have to make a final decision. So if there are any problems with any of that, then we just kind of have to go to Plan B. I know that there's a few other recommendations. All right, safety capital grant. What do we have? Where are we at? Talking about technology here?
It actually was to be the report from the IT committee,
Okay.
and which really doesn't partake to the capital grant, the way that got listed. Should have been IT committee update, but that's okay. So we have, I think you both have a copy of the committee that I chair, and this was the committee that I took on with the strategic plan that we outlined and started working on a couple of years ago, and our IT committee has diligently met. Along the course of time, we've had opportunities for safety grants and other things that have kind of put us on hold a little bit because, oh, let's wait and see what funding is available, not available, so forth. But as we've moved through and done those things, our committee has met, and in this report before you, you can see there's a brief description. You can see the individuals of the committee, and for those who don't have this in front of you, they include myself, Stacy Wilson, County Administrator, Jake Scaife with Buckeye IT, Ken Majors, Emergency Services Director, Julie Atkins, the Auditor. Also with Julie from time to time, also as needed under technical expertise was Alex from her office, who handles the GIS stuff there for the Auditor, Sheriff Eckleberry, Judge Kelbley, and Dan Stahl, Emergency Management Administrator. So the key components of the public safety services that we provide or the makeup of our committee is the emphasis there. But you can see how, you know, the description of how we've operated with T1 lines and various other technical connectivity capabilities and so forth. Our ultimate scope for this county critical infrastructure fiber project for public safety and county IT is about security and about that critical infrastructure for public safety. We've proposed kind of a phase 1, phase 2 as ways we think is what's, and again, this is about what the county needs. Because we thought if we didn't identify as a county committee what the county needs are, how do we've got to have that for our plan. And then our plan can advance, as you'll see further down on the page, to getting the other things done that will get us to some real numbers, which have been requested as well. But without knowing that direction, it's kind of hard to, you know, decide where the numbers are. So our phase 1 of project scope that our committee brings forth to this board as a recommendation is critical infrastructure, backbone, and interconnectivity to county public safety locations, including the functionality for next generation 911. A location to include the Sheriff's Office, the Emergency Operations Center, the Justice Center and Annex building, and could possibly include Tiffin Police Department, Fostoria Police Department, and that is all based on interest and negotiations with those municipalities if that's of interest in time. Phase 2, if wanted to go that far, or if we just want to stop with 1, phase 2 would take it to the next step of interconnecting the Commissioner's Office, County Services Building, RTA, Youth Center, Ag Services, Dog Warden, Engineer, DJFS, County Garage Maintenance, Veteran Services, Museum, possibly via wireless, Board of Elections, and the Prosecutor. The implementation of all this is contingent on financing and that the cost is not a burden to the county, but our committee wasn't looking at the financing, we're looking at what is the direction we need to go, and once we have that go, we can start to find cost. There's always going to be an operating cost. There's an operating cost on a daily basis, monthly basis now for every one of the departments that is using the internet, and that's everybody who's backing up off-site or on-site, who's making sure the 911 calls go through, who's making sure the dispatch things happen, all of that stuff for our public services. So we're going to continue to have that. So we just want to forewarn that maybe this isn't all about cost savings. This is about preparing that critical infrastructure fiber project. Next generation 911 is forthcoming. There is going to be a mandate from the state. We don't have a drop dead deadline, right? I'm looking to Dan and Ken. I'm going, not yet, but we've known and have been working towards this all of my time here, and Dan and Ken both have been in the county longer than I, and so they know it goes beyond that. So then the next step, as outlined here, if we would move forward with the recommendation for phase 1 and or phase 1 and 2 that this committee is recommending, the next things that then could happen would need to take place would be design engineering work. That step could be implemented, completed cooperatively via Viber swap with an IRU, which is an indefeasible rights of use. And I'm no technical expert, but we've done the research on understanding what that IRU would be, and with Bascom Communications, and working with them as a community business well established in this line of work here in the county, willing to work with us on that. They would be able to help us complete fiber ring technology that underlines these things. Then cost projections, once you have kind of the engineering plan out there, and they would do that just to help us get this moved through. No cost to us. Cost projections, actual cost projections can be calculated and budgets established after that engineering work. We've got to know that plan and the detail of it to be able to move that direction. And then of course the IRU is important. That would be a document that would detail out the cooperative agreement with Bascom Communications, including the county's use of a large percentage of the fiber ring, having its place in exchange for the new fiber we could install to complete the ring. Bascom Communications would provide engineering work at no cost to the county and include long-term general maintenance for most of any repairs with that. Having the ring so that we can continue that critical infrastructure for our public safety services and have the security level that the IT committee, think that the county ought to have under our own responsibilities and care is where this plan directs us towards, and we're looking and present that as our recommendation. And there's many members of the committee here.
Okay.
So, got questions for you though?
Well, yeah, I have a couple, and of course, I put costs in there a couple times, but you answered that. Where do the grants and the potential loans fit into all this? At what point would we talk about utilizing them or not utilizing them for this project?
What we would need to do is, the direction of where the county wants to go with IT is what our committee was focusing on. We waited over time from round one and round two respectfully because there were $500,000 loan, grant applications, and that would have obviously contributed greatly towards cost of things, and so we wanted to know, well, now with knowing we've got a safety grant of $163,000 available, we're not factoring that in on this. We need a direction so we can establish a plan. The way that grant was written is there's some for equipment and things that could be obtained with the $163,000 grant. That involves multiple partners, not just the county. The city was on that application, townships and some villages. So that could still be utilized, and respectfully so, if the interest is in obviously utilizing that grant, bringing that 163 to Seneca County. I know from the county's perspective, the sheriff's department has indicated they have some upgrading and or need for either upgrading current equipment or additional tough books for the cars for the deputies. So we could use a portion of that, whatever portion would be allowable for that, and then those other entities all probably have equipment needs as well. To utilize the loan, if the interest is, and again, we didn't talk about the financing, if we're gonna utilize the loan, we use the match of that for, on the grant application, on the round two of the grant application. The application was for $500,000, we were awarded $163,000. So we're gonna need to utilize $500,000 in order to draw that 163 from all of our research and understanding of that. So whether that is taking on the 0% interest loan that was applied through the COG, that could be done, or whatever other funding mechanism needs to be done. But I look at that as separate and as opportunities separate from what the direction we need on a plan so we can get cost on this. The 163, again, is kind of detailed out. It's going to need to be for equipment and so forth. The loan is availability of funding. Yes, we're going to need funding for this. If it's the desires, once we know a direction of the commissioners to take on the loan in order to utilize as a starting monies for our project, I think that'll be, I think $500,000 is starting money. I mean, we're going to find out, but you don't know all the cost yet. Then we can do that if indeed the other partners aren't in need of some of that money. We got to determine that and who the, I would be fine if the county wants to take on the loan and use the money for the fiber project, as long as we have a plan and we know how we're going to utilize that money. But just getting a decision on the plan is the goal, and not today, but that we wanted to get forward so we can know where we're going. I'm more concerned about that than how we finance it at the moment.
Mayor Mons, first of all, thanks for being here today. Secondly, where is the city from your standpoint at with the safety grant combined with IT advancements as it relates to cooperation with the county over the long term?
Can I mention something for
Sure.
Mayor? There was a meeting last Wednesday at the NCOESC to discuss some of the loan options. And I did get a reminder yesterday that we have 25 working days to get this loan running, so I do want to mention that. But the COG and the NCOESC has offered to cover 51% of the loan, with the county and the city splitting the remainder. The initial was 75-25, but it would be if what the city and the county feels appropriate for that. So Time is an essence on that. As Holly said, there was a stipulation when the grant was submitted that we use the loan, and I think Mr. DeVoli was going to check to see if we had to use the loan or if it would be more, if it would be better for us. I know Commissioner Thomas had said maybe do some internal financing or different options that way, and I don't know if John got that answer yet, but so I know our timeline for this loan is coming short. It wasn't necessarily the IT committee's decision on that loan,
Not our decision.
so I just wanted to mention that. It would lead the NCOESC to be 51% owner of this project, and they do have some other options and ideas that was submitted with the last grant. And I'm not a technical person, so I'm just going to say it was somewhere. It was a smart city kind of a direction. Obviously, getting our infrastructure in first and initially, and I can let all the techie people that are here to discuss that. But just some of the things that happened last week, you know, after our board sessions and stuff regarding the safety grant.
Let the mayor make that comment now, yeah.
Yeah, can you restate what you asked me now?
Well,
Sorry, Mayor.
just,
It's all
I
right. I
guess,
was
just
getting prepared to
as an
answer it, and then-
as an overview, how is the city viewing this project? Would they still like to cooperate on a countywide basis? And, you know, where do you see the city getting involved?
Yeah, from a city standpoint, I can't speak for city council, but from myself and the administration, we certainly want to cooperate with Seneca County on a project. We view you as we do the COG and anyone else, as valuable partners. Since we're such a small percentage of the deal, it's essentially we're going to ride along with what the county has decided on this project. We want to be a part. We understand the benefits to having the smart or the next generation 911 and this cooperative project. It doesn't make sense for either one of us to do separate projects, at least in my opinion. So we're anxious to see what your decision is, and I think that's why I'm here today, is to ultimately see what is decided by the county, so the city decides, I guess, what horse we're riding with to get this project completed. But yeah, we want to cooperate and have this resolved sooner than later.
Okay.
I just think we need to figure out if the direction from what our committee was challenged to do and put forth the best effort and ideas for IT for the county, that we're going, so we don't convolute it with the loan and the terms of the loan. I mean, if we decide we're gonna do this, then we start getting those cost projections. Yes, we will need to determine if we want to, how we would prefer to do the loan and which of the parties still want to be part of that. I think then, and whoever's utilizing those safety dollars and or what percentage of the loan they need, and I don't know, you know, how that gets calculated out, then that would be who's accountable to the payback of that loan. And I think that's where that lies best. It's not a matter of, you know, majority ownership or anything like that. It's a matter of whoever uses the money needs to be responsible for the payback. And yes, there's some fees and thing, applicably so, that's due to the COG for the work that they've done.
Okay, now, Wendy, give me the date again.
That it is due, or that we
That we
have to
have
use
to
it
do
by. Doc said 25 working days, so it was June 30,
May.
or yeah, May, sorry, May.
Okay. Do you think, Aaron, that the city would have an appetite for utilizing that loan? I know you can't speak for the council.
Yeah, well, we like the idea of not putting any money up front into it, because we had nothing budgeted this year. And with us running a much more tight budget this year and probably next year due to some of the changes that we've seen with income tax collections and our income tax collections at the city level lagging behind, we really like the idea of not having to put upfront money into this right now. Because we have one of the tight, as you probably read in the paper, our budget has been the tightest this year and probably again next year that we've seen in the last several years due to the state meddling with a lot of local government issues and tax issues. So our revenues right now are down, and we're not comfortable making any sort of large commitments, at least in big chunks of money right now. Smaller amounts are fine, but I guess that's why potentially a loan is the best option, whether you're getting that from the county or whether that's from the COG. We just like some sort of a loan option as the city.
and our committee is, and we shared this with the city, so they knew that with the recommendation we anticipate coming forward with, we would still have the opportunity, if we move in this direction for the county's fiber, infrastructure connectivity stuff, to work with the city as another governmental municipality here, to work with them on a lease agreement when they're ready. If they thought that's for sure the direction they want, it might make a difference in how we outline fiber, that kind of stuff. But other than that, that could happen when they're ready, to vet that process, they want to be part of it, even if we're just moving forward right now, without a commitment from them to be joined in. As another government entity, we could do that with them.
Any other comments from the IT committee members? Anybody like to add anything?
I would like Dan to talk a little bit about this critical infrastructure, because if we don't move ahead with this project, 911 calls still get answered, we can still move to next gen with a private market solution.
We can.
There's a workaround.
There is a workaround.
Can we just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, when we move up to the next gen stuff, we're gonna have to probably increase our capabilities from the T1s to something else like Metro Ethernet or something like that from a vendor. The estimates look like they would be anywhere between like $15,000 and $20,000 per year. We're doing a plan right now on the next generation system for a 10-year project. In fact, we're presenting that to the 911 Planning Committee Monday.
So a 10-year project to have E911?
Have next generation, to purchase the next generation equipment.
Okay.
Yes, which is different than all this. Well, we need that connectivity.
Gotcha.
We're gonna need that bigger connectivity to utilize the features that next generation 911 offers. We cannot do it with what we have today for the future offerings. Talking with some of my counterparts that do 911, they've had to go back and increase their band coverage from what they initially thought they would have to have. I can see having a dark fiber available for public safety with virtually unlimited bandwidth for us. It just matters what equipment you put on the end of it.
Right.
Would be a huge plus, and it wouldn't strap us in the future from taking on new technology that's offered with 911. And that's what the next generation is all about. So the people can utilize the cell phones and the equipment they carry with them daily. It can include texting. They're talking video in the future. Can you imagine that, getting a video from a location that has an issue with law enforcement, or that needs law enforcement, or any of the other services, be able to broadcast it? That's in the future, but that all takes...
Do you have any kind of timeline on what the future is? Is that...
Yeah, they're talking a couple of years. The texting type stuff is there today. The other, they're talking a couple of years. I think the state's talking 2018, 2019 on some of that stuff. And as I spoke before when I was here, we had that interconnectivity piece that we have to do also with the state. So it's never going to get smaller. It's always going to get bigger. They're going to come up with other stuff that we're probably going to want to participate on. And by limiting how much bandwidth we have, we'll just have to do something, we'd have to do something different again and again and again to meet those needs.
You haven't been told that you don't have access to larger bandwidth by your private market vendors, have you?
No, I have not been told.
Yeah. So really for us, it comes down to a lease versus buy analysis. We lease it through existing fiber networks, or we buy and put in our own network.
I don't think it would be fiber. I think it would be, I gotta think about this. I think it's gonna be AT&T copper. It's gonna be some stuff that they have. I don't believe we're gonna have a fiber network. T1s are copper. It's old, it's dependable, old technology, but it's limited. It's very much limited.
So you're saying if it was on the lease side, it would have to be something that already exists?
I'm sorry.
If it's on the lease side of things, instead of installing it ourselves and paying for it, you would be leasing existing technology. They wouldn't be putting in new runs for us.
Probably not. I haven't gone that route.
Question.
I know that the AT&T route is an option, and I know the rough price on that. With the $15,000 to $20,000 a year, that equates out to upwards towards $250,000 over the next 10 years, which I would view as being nice chunk of change for a project like this. And that's just Next Generation 911. That's not a lot of other stuff that we do too.
Yeah, I think that, without a communications infrastructure analysis, we don't really know what our options are. I mean, I made a call to AT&T, and they have fiber, 500 feet from this building. There's also a node for Spectrum at their office downtown. I saw a beautiful map from Bascom that's very, very, very close. So I don't know that we know what the lease option is. I've not seen those numbers. And for us to make a decision on whether or not to invest ourselves, I think we need to know what the alternative is.
The discussion has always led towards fiber, and I'm not sure that there is existing connectivity on fiber to the 4 spots that we need. I don't know if they indicated that to you or not.
Yeah, no, it was beyond my, I just
Yeah.
wanted to know what fiber was generally available downtown, so I just made
Well,
two calls,
on-
and that, I mean, I know that's not
Yeah.
the jail, it's not the fairgrounds, I understand that.
Right,
But, that's, I think those are questions we need to know the answer to before we can make a decision to make our own investment. If there's a private market solution, as Mr. Kirschner pointed out, there's people who do this for a living, and it's not us.
Do you, I don't know if you want to have Jake speak to any of
Yeah, I'd
that
be
as
happy to have
our
you.
technical person, but that again is if we know that we're interested in supporting the recommendation, we do that engineering work to get to some cost numbers, because there has been some questions, and I'm going to yield to Jake, but some questions to, private out there, and they weren't willing to do some of the things that, I'll let
Yeah.
Jake take it from there.
Well, my view is, once we have the direction of the project that we want to go, we can still explore other options of leasing versus owning. But it's, do we only want to interconnect our 4 or 5 critical 911 spots? Do we want to look at interconnecting everything? When some other parties had contacted Spectrum now, Time Warner Communications, Brian from the ESC had done some reaching out to other parties like that to try to say, hey, this is what we're looking to do. Early on, they had seemed interested, but then at one point, he was not able to get them to even come down here to talk with us, to provide us with those quotes, because we didn't have a scope and we didn't have a project to find out, hey, this is exactly what we want to do.
Understandable.
So it's, yes, there are fiber options in Seneca County other than us just putting our own in. Are they where we need them? No. They're still going to have to do build-outs. Depending on the proximity to the locations that we would need, typically when I help my clients get connected, if they're within a 500-foot range, they don't have construction costs. They get farther out, you want fiber from them, AT&T is going to make you pay for that full build-out from their node to your location. So yeah, there's a lot of numbers that still need to be figured out. We define and say, hey, this is what we want to interconnect, this is where we want to go. We have our mission, then we can get those more accurate numbers. We can get a list of the more accurate options we have to interconnect and to complete that project. There's a lot of variables that, Columbia Gas and these companies are finding out even down and around town with the lack of mapping of stuff that's in here. And some of those ranges, even if we're gonna have to pay it for ourselves or have AT&T build it out, where it could be $80,000 a mile to bury the fiber, it could be $250,000 a mile to bury the fiber. So a lot of numbers, a lot of options, but really I think we need to define the mission, figure out where we want to go as a county, then figure out who our partners could be and what the pricing options on those would be for us. And also to add too, on top of the public safety, the interconnecting the county offices there's no way to quantifiably say we're going to save X amount now, but the efficiencies that we've seen, we've made trips to other counties that have had separate silos basically for their county offices. They've interconnected everybody through fiber projects, through a wide area network, a metropolitan area network, and they see increased efficiency in the operation. I mean, in the back of everybody's mind should be, okay, they're saving money, one way or the other, because if an organization is more efficient and they're not saving money, that just doesn't mix. So more efficient.
We should be able to
saving money.
quantify that.
Well, we can't now because we don't know exactly, but those places.
What our
those-
potential.
Yeah, so I mean, we can look now at what are we paying for internet and phone for all of our locations? Okay, we can get some rough numbers. Okay, if we interconnect all our offices, we can simplify a phone system. We could potentially save money on our internet costs. We could potentially save money on the phone bills that we pay. We could potentially save money on backup. We could save money on time and labor for people to communicate and transfer documents back and forth. There's a lot of added benefits once you have critical infrastructure like this in place to interconnect.
Yeah, it becomes a cost benefit, it becomes a business decision as to
Yeah.
whether or not we move forward with
Yeah.
that.
But I think,
But
I
we
mean,
haven't done that work yet, right?
outside of my technical position to do this for you, just my opinion is really, I mean, a lot of these other things, you're not gonna go to a builder and say, hey, build me a house, how much is it gonna cost? They're gonna look at you, how many bathrooms, you gotta define upfront what you want before you can really get the plan and the cost together. And I think that's where we're at, what we need to do. So.
And
Okay.
We have costs of what we spend on each vendor a year. But that doesn't help you decide what we could save. We have a total cost of what we spend on AT&T, Time Warner, the new Spectrum, which.
T1 lines, all that.
Yes, we have a cost on all of those that I have and we can provide. Just, I don't know on the techie end is what it could save, and it also depends what you're gonna do. If you're gonna do the fiber, what that could do. If you're gonna do a different hybrid,
install rings,
and that's
yeah.
back to defining the project so we know exactly.
Well, thank you to all the members of the IT committee. I don't know if there's anything in here that, I mean, at least we would advance by virtue of the engineering study. That's really the only call to action at this point, unless I'm not reading.
Just if you like the direction of phase 1, phase 2 there, I mean, if you think we're on the right path, and I don't know that we've, said I don't necessarily expect to have an answer today by any
Right.
means. You're just hearing this and a chance to hear all this input. But eventually we'll need just to know, is the interest, is this board willing to support us moving towards phase 1, and then we can engage and get the engineering work done, moving for phase 1 and 2, and get the engineering work done so we can put together budgets and cost projections and then figure out, how and if we continue down that path. But we can't expect someone to do the engineering work for us who's willing to do that if we don't know we're interested in going that direction. We need to know that if somebody says, no, I think we should just continue as is, forget doing any of this stuff now.
So would you like to revisit this Tuesday?
Yeah, whenever you guys are ready. I mean, I'm not, I just wanted to get the report from the committee out
And I think
to
we
you.
better, Tuesday, I think we all need to take some type of poll or get a temperature on whether or not there's an appetite to execute the $500,000 loan.
So then probably if we can ask the COG, who are present, to by Tuesday also confirm if the other parties of that safety grant, what they're certainly, if they're still interested, because if things have changed, because one, it wasn't the full amount requested, so it's, it's a lot less money but we're grateful for what we can get from that grant. But if they're gonna say, well, no, because if we can't this, or, yeah, we could, but we would need all 163, we just need to know how that grant is gonna be used, because then obviously the determination of the loan that's against it, or some type of match, wherever that 500,000 would come from, then we would know. Because if for some reason they all walked away, then the county's gotta figure out where we're gonna use the 163,000, so we fulfill the grant correctly. Or if we know we've got 20% of that or 50% of that or whatever. I think we would need to know that. So if that's not unreasonable, Mr. DeVoli, to know if, I forget which townships and villages were to get some things, but if they're still interested.
I just speak for the villages without talking to them. I would imagine, it's just villages, there's no townships.
There was no township, okay.
They basically signed up as participating partners, leveraging the funds that either the county and city, those are only two that have a financial stake or risk, or however you'd like to pose that. The villages, and like I said, I'm not speaking for the villages, but I would imagine that they would still love to have all their equipment and
There's
stuff.
some equipment
There was
needs to
zero
have.
cost, there was zero cost to them inside the grant application. The match was met by the county and the city with
Okay.
all that fiber stuff.
That's fine, I just want to know what of that 163 they need.
I can contact
because-
the 6 mayors and just ask them, hey, are you still interested in receiving some equipment and that sort of thing? And the other big one was, of course, Sheriff Eckleberry, I think you talked about earlier with all the tough books, they call them.
Yeah.
Those are of the 163,000, the majority of the funds, if I'm not mistaken, is the village connectivity with the screens and the computers, and then the tough books for the sheriff. That's how the 163 grant money was portioned out, and then the rest of it was the match from the county and the city to do the fiber portion of it for the connectivity.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding safety capital grant, or IT, I guess? I want to also recognize, one step backwards, all the folks that submitted the request on the Ohio Historic History Connection Grant. Not only folks submitted, but there were a number of letters of support from people out there too. So we really do appreciate your interest, and hopefully we'll be able to disperse that money fairly. We have new business authorizing real estate appraisal contract with Midwest for parcels E3, E2, F and G on behalf of the airport. Is that all?
Read my whole title.
Okay. So shall I-
That's all I have.
Okay, so.
So moved.
Thank you. Need a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Roll call, please, Lynn.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas? Yes. Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes. Okay, that's all we have. Time has come for any public comments. Any additional public comments? Yes.
Loretta Miller, Tiffin, Ohio. As a citizen, I'm concerned about the historic issue, that I think that a compromise could be easily reached using the $24,002 that's left. I think that our Seneca County Museum is very deserving of some of that. For 5 years, they worked and slaved and raised money to pay utilities, which the commissioners were not covering during that time period. And they did not have money to do other repair and restoration and things that they could have if they hadn't been using their funds to pay utilities and things like that. I also think that the Spiva Manley project is a very worthy project and would also increase the appeal to young people in our county who are interested in history and would like to see things moving. I think the Ritz is also a worthy cause, and I would like to propose that you think about taking the 24-2 that's left and dividing it roughly in 3 portions for the Spiva Manley, the Seneca County Museum, and the Ritz. You can't divide that exactly in 3 portions, but roughly $8,000 for each group. $8,000 isn't a huge amount of money, but I'm sure they could all use it in a good, positive manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
A couple of questions on the grant, and maybe Charlene would need to answer. The first one is, do you even know if the 24-2 can be put aside? In other words, does the grant application allow you to do that?
That was the charge in the motion, was to investigate that, to solidify whether that can happen or not.
Okay. The other question is, on the $15,000 for the video, who's going to get what of that $15,000? In other words, there were 3 people, 3 entities asking for that money. Are you going to fully fund all of what the Rail Museum has asked for and all of what the Foster Area Historical Society is asking for, and then the rest goes to what was it, Tiffin Glass Museum maybe, I think?
Yeah, that figure, I believe, and Commissioner Thomas can correct me if I'm wrong, when we were kind of summarize those three video-related requests together, one had a cost projection with it, with what we had received of $6,800.
Right.
The other was very compatible to that, but without all the detail, we weren't positive, and the one specifically said $1,500 to do their next, the Fostoria's next
Right.
volume of their video series. So,
Those two aspects would be in whole approved.
I wouldn't say that.
that's gotta be vetted through, but that's what Charlene's work will be, is to figure that out, because like we didn't really have a specific
There'll
cost
have
on
to
the
be a
one.
grant receiving agency that will administer the video
Yes.
history piece.
Yeah.
So, my original motion was that the museum do that, but I think that's open for interpretation at this point.
I know Weston has talked to some of the people with the videos and the markers, and we talked about using Spiva Home as a hub for that, kind of to direct people, maybe have like a roadmap, if you will, to send people in that direction to other historic landmarks around the county.
I think the short answer around your question about 15,000 is that question hasn't been answered until Charlene has some clarification as to where and how the money can be dispersed.
So would you say it's fair to say that on Tuesday, you will decide?
Yeah, we
what
agree,
fund
we agree the 15,000 would be used for video history and markers. How it gets dispersed may come in question, but it will get dispersed, it'll get dispersed to a 501c3 corporation who can then.
Or a government entity.
Yeah, who can get it done. So yes, those three items, or those four items are done deals in one form or another, as long as there's no pushback from a qualification standpoint.
So even after Tuesday, it's possible you're not gonna know how that 15,000 is gonna be divvied up, is that right? I mean, it could be up to some other organization.
I mean, we know it's gonna be used for historical videoing and markers, but not exactly sure how it'll be divided up.
And I will state that I did speak with Roland Zimmerman from the Seneca County Park District this morning, and Mr. Zimmerman did indicate that the Seneca County Park District is willing and would more than gladly take charge on doing the historical markers and the maps, if that is necessary.
They could possibly do that, and then maybe the Seneca County Historical Society could do the museum portion, because that was kind of like the two separate things out there. I mean, it's just, potentially.
But he did indicate that they would be very interested in doing that and would be glad to do that.
Okay, any other public comment? This meeting is adjourned.